G'day everybody, Where's Wally here. Well, today I'd like to introduce to you Mission Control. Now, he's a really great and super and most certainly undersubbed content creator. So I asked him to give me a hand. I said, here, go and have a look at Brandon and his show of ignorance. See what derp you can find there, mate.
He even went beyond that. And not only did he set it to equivalent at Mars, but he put a piece of dry ice in there because Mars's atmosphere is allegedly CO2, right? So he puts the CO2 in there, or the dry ice, which of course evaporates to CO2, and then he dropped it to 0.088 psi, right? And not a and he puts this fan at high speed right next to the feather, this teeny tiny feather, and it wouldn't even move the smallest hairs on the feather at all.
Yeah, that's really remarkable.
We're still talking about Mars.
Again, and this is why I've covered vacuum so many times. When you talk about 10 to the negative 17 torque versus 14.7, and you have to understand the power differential in that. I mean, the Sandusky vacuum facility in Sandusky, Ohio, NASA's facility there, only goes to about a little bit over 1/3 the vacuum that you would have in space, right? The Sandusky lab, they say that in order to stop the air from being drawn through the doors and the walls, they have to be 8 feet thick of concrete and steel, right? So if the Sandusky lab has to have 8 feet thick walls of concrete and steel, then how does the ISS support a 14.7 psi atmosphere with a beer can basically worth of hull?
Should be super easy. Well, this was the result.
This is Mission Control. We have clearance on 29% to land checks over.
20 seconds and counting.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Mission Control. A dear friend of mine gave me a tip to have a look at Brandon Toy's channel, and man do they struggle with quite a few things. First of all, they don't think Mars is a real planet. I mean, any kid with a decent telescope can prove them wrong. And they know that, so they deliberately choose to attack other points. This time, they have set out to prove that a drone can't fly under the atmospheric conditions on Mars. They were especially fond of Cody's lab video that essentially was simulating the atmosphere on Mars and showing how hard it was to blow a feather with a fan. Brandon used that video to suit his own purpose, but just as the video is about to reveal the opposite, Brandon's short attention span kicks in and he cuts the video. How convenient. I don't know what it is with these people, but they just don't care to read or watch things to the end. They also go on to talk about NASA's vacuum chamber in Sandusky and how it needs to have 8 feet thick walls to sustain a vacuum, while the ISS has much thinner walls. Somehow they derive that the ISS would have to be ripped apart due to the vacuum of space. This is yet another example of intellectual deficit. The Sandusky chamber does have a thick concrete and steel enclosure, but it is not attached to the inner vacuum chamber. It is there to shield against radiation and as a barrier from atmospheric pressure. And atmospheric pressure is exactly what the ISS is not exposed to. So there's no crushing force out there. It's actually the opposite. The ISS has an interior pressure of 14.7 psi, which the craft needs to resist. It's like a soda can, very much vulnerable to outside pressure, but strong against inside pressure. In fact, a soda can is able to stand 90 psi of interior pressure. That's 6 times the pressure we experience on the surface here on Earth. So, Brandon and your disciples, please try to be truthful and responsible when you put out information to the public. I believe this was another safe landing for the Globe team, and to my dear friend, I can only say, barely an inconvenience, mate.
Oh, mate, that was tight. Well, Wolfie, he had a quick look too, and he loved it. He also wanted to add this.
Thanks, Wally. I'm not sure why these flat earthers doubt that the ISS could withstand 14.7 psi pressure differential. Aircraft are pressurised all the time, and the aircraft I fly can easily go to 10 psi and more during normal pressurisation cycles. As we saw with the demonstration by Mission Control, the Coke can was able to withstand higher internal pressures quite easily, but in the reverse situation, with the external air pressure being greater, it imploded. The situation is the same with the aircraft. What we're looking at here is the Global 7500 limitations page. I had to memorise all of these facts and figures for the oral examination, which was part of the type rating. If we look down at the pressurisation limits, you can see that the maximum positive differential is 10.73. The maximum negative differential is only minus 0.5 psi. In a situation with negative 10 psi, that fuselage would definitely implode. So we're showing clearly that they are much stronger when the internal pressure is greater. 10.73 psi, it's not that much more to go up to 14.7 psi. The ISS could easily handle that type of pressure.
Yeah, well, thanks, Wolfie. We all know that. Yes, Wolfie, we know your plane. It's a flying Coke can. We get it. Well, all that's left to say is to press the like button and the subscribe button and the bell button, and then go over to Mission Control's video and most definitely do it all again over there. Please sub to him. He's a great content creator and we want to get him going too. And here's the link. So please enjoy. Thanks, guys.